We love the trails, but our footprints leave a mark. How do we protect the wild places we run in? I'm Laura Briggs, and this is Storytime with the Green Runners, where we meet trailblazers taking imperfect actions for a healthier planet. This series is entirely supported by our members. If you believe in what we do, please consider joining the Green Runners. For the price of a coffee a month, you can help us work towards a greener future. Find the link in the show notes. Now, let's get into today's story.
If you're anything like me, your relationship with your wardrobe is probably a bit complicated. We live in a world of frictionless fashion. You tap a button on your phone and a £20 coat arrives at your door the next day. We buy, we wear, we bin, we repeat. But our guest today is choosing a completely different path. Lydia Bolton is a sustainable designer who has banned virgin fabrics from her studio. Instead, she takes the things the world throws away, like old curtains, dead stock fabrics, and discarded tracksuits, and she unpicks them, thread by thread, to rebuild them into high-end, gorgeous fashion. She's hosted trash labs for Nike, workshops where she teaches everyday people how to rescue their dead gear, hacked up official Manchester United kits for Adidas, and shown the country how to save their old clothes on the BBC. When she's not sitting at a sewing machine, she's out running as a member of our very own The Green Runners, wearing her gear until it quite literally falls apart. She's also the closing chapter of our Gear for Good campaign, and if you haven't come across it yet, it's a 4-part project that maps out the entire life cycle of running gear. She's here today to talk about the beauty of doing things the hard way, why she's fighting a multi-billion-pound industry with a pair of fabric shears, and what giving old things a second chance can teach us about our own lives. Welcome, Lydia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on. Now, Lydia, before we get into the heavy lifting, please tell me a little bit about your London studio and what I'd find in there right now. Is it piles of charity shop fabrics or is it a calm, minimalist oasis?
It's the opposite of minimal. It is, I'm just looking around now and there is stuff all over the floor. There is stuff on almost every surface possible. So I think if people do sewing, or even if they know someone that does sewing, you'll know that sewing and minimal don't really pair together. And then when you add in upcycling, it compounds even more because you just say yes to everything because it could be useful. So it's calm because it's just me, but it's visually chaos. There's stuff absolutely everywhere.
I love knowing that kind of behind you or just off of shot now, there's just piles of fabric. That makes me feel a lot better about the own mess that I'm sitting in. So, Lydia, your job is pretty much the dream job for anyone who wants to work in fashion. And you took a bit of a beat and you made it into something quite different and forward thinking. Can you tell me kind of when was the moment that you knew you wanted to work in the sustainability space?
So I always wanted to be a fashion designer. So that was kind of always the career that I wanted to have. And I was always doing everything to do with art and creativity at school, studied an art foundation. My mum taught me how to sew when I was about 13. And then I went on to university. Alongside this, I'd been brought up in quite a sustainable, it wasn't called sustainable, but just my mum is very sustainably conscious. So being brought up in this eco context without it being like named, it was just kind of how we lived. We always were wearing secondhand clothing. My mum always was mending and repairing things. Everything was just reused. There's like hundreds of bins. You don't put it in the bin. My mum does something with it and it gets used in another way. Recycled in the correct way. So I was kind of brought up in this way, alongside always wanting to be a fashion designer. And after a couple of years of working in industry, I realised that actually I was trying to live in a sustainable way in my personal life, kind of always shopping secondhand as much as I could, being really conscious about my consumption, caring about all the values and ethics behind what I bought. And then I realised I need my career to match how I was trying to live in my personal life. And I heard this quote, which was, as a designer, you have a responsibility with what you create. And even though I'd studied at university, I'd always kind of done like loads of different extra courses in design and all of that, I'd never, as a designer, been taught about the responsibility that you have. And it kind of really hit me. I was like, I care about sustainability. in my personal life and I'm actually doing a job where I can actually have a bit more of a positive impact. This makes no sense that I'm not. And kind of from realizing that, I quit my job quite quickly, went to work in the pub to pay my bills, and then built up my brand from there.
That must have been quite a scary thing to do at your stage in your career as well. Was that a big leap for you?
It was a big leap in the sense that it had taken me a really long time to get a paid job. In fashion, you have to do quite a lot of unpaid internships to get your paid job. So I'd done a really tough year post-uni of working unpaid in the daytime, interning, working at night to pay my rent. And then after a year of doing that, I got a job, and I was really pleased to have gotten this job. So quitting after about a year and a half did feel quite silly to go back to the pub to pay my bills again from working in the evening and then working, I guess, technically for free for myself in the daytime. So it was scary because it would take me so long to get this job. But in the other sense, I was also 25. So I was fairly early on in my career. And I think because I was early on in my career, I didn't necessarily earn loads. So it wasn't scary in that sense. I knew I could go back to a hospitality job and like cover all my bills.
It makes me think that maybe people who are further on in their fashion career then feel potentially a little bit hamstrung by the position they're in if they want to do more for the environment, but they feel like they're in an industry where they can't quite do that, but they equally don't want to lose their job or step away from the job. It's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually do think it's the earlier you are in your career, the easier it is to make quite bold moves because you've got, in a way, a lot less to lose, and you also don't know how. Yeah, I do think you've got less to lose earlier on in your career. So it's although it's scary because you also don't know as many people, and there's less of a path to follow. I think it's slightly easier to be quite bold when you're earlier on in your career. But I also do think it's really important that we have people that care about sustainability in all of these normal roles in kind of, all the whole range of brands, from brands which care more about sustainability and brands that care less about sustainability. I think it's still really important to have people that care in these roles. Often people will ask me, they'll say, like, I really care about sustainability, but I'm working at XYZ brand and I want to quit, but like it's really hard to find a job within sustainable fashion because there aren't as many roles. And I kind of say, well, maybe you can be like a really good positive voice in the company that you do work at, and you can try and meet other people in the company who care about sustainability, try and make kind of your own little group and like inroads. So I think it's important that we have people that care everywhere, basically.
Which brings me nicely to the part of this interview where I talk to you about your work with Nike and Adidas, because of course, then you're kind of in the belly of the beast, so to speak. You're working for these enormous brands that potentially have, in some areas, shady credentials when it comes to sustainability.
Totally.
But you're inside and you're teaching others how to be more sustainable and how to upcycle kit. How does it make you feel when you realise kind of where you positioned yourself and you're in this amazing space to show others how to do things better?
Yeah, I think it is. It's one of those quite tricky things to work out the balance of, because obviously companies like this do overproduce so much. And I think I'm fortunate in the way that I work. They will kind of only work with me in the capacity of reusing materials. So it's always going to be reusing sleeping stock, excess stock, maybe. So with Nike, quite a few of the pieces had like kind of makeup marks on around the neckline. So maybe they'd been tried on in store, wouldn't be able to be sold because they'd been damaged or stained. So then we were using that kind of stuff. So it's all of this, so much waste. So we're using kind of this unwanted waste textile that can't be sold and giving it a new life. So I am fortunate that the way that I can work with these brands is in a way that is still really true to my values. But it is an interesting thing when you're kind of working with someone, showing people these skills, but there is obviously the other side of it.
Yeah, and it's great that you've managed to kind of get to that place, because I know a lot of people, just really struggle to even get someone to pick up the phone, perhaps when they're working for those massive running brands. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit as well about your running, obviously, with the Green Runners. And so I'd love to know kind of what got you into running and how it looked in the early days for you? Were you kind of just running around London, or do you love trail running? What's your jam?
I predominantly run around London just because that's where I live. But my last long run was a trail run. So I do, and I really got into trail running when I was doing the training for my trail run. When did I start running? Again, it like goes back to my parents my mum runs every morning still. And when I grew up, she was always running every morning. My dad would go for the odd run. And so I just kind of saw running as a really easy, nice piece of exercise to do. Whenever you choose, but normally first thing in the morning. So I kind of had seen that, and then I actually didn't really get properly into it until COVID and the gyms closed. And I always have enjoyed exercising as much as I can, probably like 5 times a week. So I feel it's really good for my headspace, gives me a nice hour to myself in the morning. And so all the gyms closed, and I think probably like quite a lot of people, I got into running because that was the only thing I could do. And it started by me hating it, and I would have to listen to audiobooks to just distract myself from the fact that I was running. And yeah, I didn't really enjoy it to start with, but it was just the only option that I had. And then probably after a year, I thought, I quite like this now. I don't need the audiobooks. I can move on to music. I don't need to be distracted. I can now enjoy it. And then I realised I loved just the time outside. And so now I don't really want to go to the gym. And I went back to the gym a little bit after COVID, but predominantly now I'm like, wow, now I get an hour outside every morning, which is even better than just an hour of exercise. It's an hour of exercise and an hour in nature running around the park.
Absolutely. And as we all know, being outside in nature is so good for our mental headspace as well as our physical well-being, isn't it? So That's kind of two things that go hand in hand. Were you drawn to running, do you think, because it's meant to be, in essence, I suppose, a more sustainable sport, or did you never really see it like that? How do you perceive it as a sport now in terms of its sustainability kind of credentials?
I think that's a slightly interesting question, because I think it's how you partake in running for how sustainable it is. Because I think there's a lot of people in running who feel maybe they need a certain kit or a certain shoe or a certain running vest, or I don't know, all of this stuff that then I think it probably could be perceived in a slightly less sustainable way. What I love about running is also the simplicity. I just can put on my shoes. I normally have a coffee before I go, have a small black coffee, and then I can just go out the door. And for me, like, the simplicity of that is so nice. I don't need to think about anything else. I'm happy always doing the same route, so I don't need to add in much variety. Other people do probably need more variety than I need. So I can just go around the park. So I love the simplicity of it. I don't waste any time trying to get there. Like if you're trying to get to the gym, or the gym might be busy, or, all of these other things that could go on. So for me, the ease and the simplicity of running really appeals to me. And I think I'd say my approach probably naturally, my approach to running is fairly sustainable. That I have my kit for as long as I possibly can, keep my shoes for as long as I can. And then when the shoes are maybe less good for running, they then will become my walking trainer or my gym trainer. So then they kind of downgrade into the lower level of performance needed. So yeah, but I think running is an interesting one for how sustainable it is or isn't.
Does it worry you, being in the influencer space, as to how other, say, running influencers or fashion influencers are promoting, new products, new kit, new trainers, new tops? Is that something that kind of preys on your mind?
I think it's just what the average person needs to remember is that it's not normal. It's not normal to have a different outfit every day. Most people don't wear a different outfit every day, or color coordinating your top to your shoe to your. I mean, I do love a look, obviously, but you don't need to buy all this new stuff to be able to partake in running. And like, running isn't about if you've got like flashy glasses to wear. It's just a really enjoyable outdoor activity, which if you enjoy with people, you can do with people, or if you just have a really nice mindful time on your own outside. So I think it does concern me in the sense that I think it could put people off, and people might think, oh no, I don't want to go to a run club, like I've just got my old t-shirt, or like they don't feel like they fit in because they don't have like new kit and gear. So I think that kind of slightly concerns me, whereas I think running is really just about having an enjoyable time outside and doing some exercise. So I think that, and it's, most people don't have all this new stuff, and most people don't buy heaps of new kit, and most influencers are getting it for free. So it's not even that they're buying it, it's they get it for free, they're wearing it, and they're trying to encourage you to buy it. I do find that very strange way of life that we've kind of got.
Well, you prove to people through our campaign, through our Gear for Good campaign, that you can go running and you can look amazing, but you can be repurposing, old gear. You were part of our campaign, as I said, and you were kind of the finale in terms of the upcycling of kits, where you made an absolutely stunning top with your kind of ruched design on one of your old T-shirts that was donated by Preloved Sports. What was it like to be part of a campaign where everybody is kind of fighting for the same cause?
Yeah, I think it's really great. And it was also a really good reminder that you can get your kits, you can kind of remake your kit, but you also can get stuff on eBay, Vinted, Reskin, like so many different platforms that you can get secondhand kit from. So it was really fun being part of a campaign that was kind of promoting all of the different avenues, or you can even just rewear your own stuff loads and loads and loads of times, shop your own wardrobe. So I think it was really good being part of a campaign that was kind of everyone was caring about the same thing, and there's loads of different routes to being more sustainable or just more conscious with how you approach your running.
Has there been a moment for you, Lydia, when you've been kind of teaching workshops or, showing people how to upcycle bits and pieces, where there's been a bit of a light bulb moment and somebody might have said to you, oh, do you know what? I'm not going to throw this away anymore. And if so, how has that made you feel?
Often it happens, I will do a workshop and then maybe a year or so later, I'll come across paths with someone again and they'll say, oh, when we did that workshop, I learned how to sew, and then later on, like something broke. I had a hole in a trouser and then I realized I could fix it. And I think what the workshops are so good at is so many of us don't do much with our hands. We do hardly any sewing, hardly any making. And most of the people that come to my workshops are beginners. So it kind of gives them that first reintroduction to using their hands and learning how to sew. And I see the workshops as much of, I want them to leave with something that they're really happy with within that workshop. I also just see it as like a really good skill sharing point so that they can come back to later down the line and they can think, oh, actually, I did use a needle and a thread in the last 6 months or year, or in recent memory, not just like at school, which is what most people say. So then they know they've done it recently. So then they can feel confident, or kind of they've got that skill set somewhere recently to jump in if they need to fix or mend something. So I kind of see the workshops not only just as what we're doing in the workshop, but actually it's that long-term benefit that they can provide. And often I do see people and they'll be like, oh, yes, I had a hole in something. And then I remembered like I had done that sewing thing with you, so then I was able to fix it. I'm like, oh, amazing, that is so good, I'm so pleased.
What's lovely is it sounds to me, and our listeners today, that your mum has been integral in the way that you do things throughout your life, and she has taught you these sewing skills, and she's taught you to be thrifty, and she's taught you to think about the way you use everything. A lot of people don't have that. They haven't been taught those skills. How important is it to you now to share your skills and to use community to promote sustainability and upcycling?
Yeah, it is really important. I am very fortunate with my mum, because people are always like, wow, you're like, I don't know, will say something complimentary about me being really sustainable. I'm like, I am zero on my mum. My mum is like my benchmark. I'm constantly like, oh, mum would be so much better at that than me. Or like, as in, she's just the most committed person I know. So I think it's good. It's good also to always have a bar way higher than you. So you always are like kind of knowing that you could be a bit better without being too harsh on yourself. I think it's good to have that kind of beacon. But I think sharing it is really important, but I also think it's really important to share it in a positive way where people feel not judged by it, because I think that is, nothing puts you off something more than if you feel judged in an environment. So I don't want people to feel judged on things. I want them to see how that they can live in a more, considerate, conscious, sustainable way by habits, maybe slightly altering habits. So maybe it's, don't worry at this stage where you buy things from, but how can you keep them in your wardrobe for a really long time? How can you make sure what you're buying is pieces that you really, really love? How can you think about what would happen after you might not want that anymore? If it's just a dress that you're not sure about, maybe that isn't something you should buy. Maybe you should buy something that you really know you're going to really want for a long time. So I try to approach my sharing of sustainability in a way where people don't feel judged and they feel that they can want to be better in a positive sense. Because I think there is a lot of judgment within sustainability. So, and a lot of the time, rightfully, but also I don't want individuals to feel excluded or like they're doing the wrong, making mistakes the whole time.
100%. I mean, the Green Runners philosophy, and we bang on about it all the time, is progress over perfection.
Yeah.
And it's a balancing act, because although, yes, we want everybody to make positive actions when it comes to the environment, a lot of people feel put off because they feel like they're being judged. Like if they have to take a flight, we've talked about this before on the show, or if they, need a new piece of clothing, and then suddenly there's that anxiety of, oh God, if I do this, then I'm not representing, this green group that I profess to be part of. And so I think you're absolutely right in saying, every individual should be free to kind of, try, but not be judged in that space. And I think that's what you do so brilliantly. You facilitate groups of people and you facilitate individuals to be creative and to have a go, because actually being creative in itself it's quite difficult for some people, isn't it, to kind of let go and try something new. How do you encourage people to kind of step outside of their comfort zone in that respect?
It is hard for people, and I also think with the creativity, it's the act of mending and repairing and being creative on an item of clothing gives you more of an attachment to that because you've put some time into it. So even the act of being creative, I also think helps with wanting to be more sustainable and conscious. And you kind of have more of a connection with that item because you've put some time into it. And the other thing is it also makes you realize how long clothes take to make. And I was going to say this on the other point about the workshops. Has anyone had a change of mindset? I think people realize how long things take to make. And so even when I do the scrunchie workshops and we're making like a little scrunchie and the workshop has taken like, I don't know, an hour and a half. And then people are like, whoa, this is taking so long. And then they think about all of the clothes they have and how long it would take to make everything, and really appreciating the skills of anyone being able to make clothing, like regardless of the brand that you've bought it from. There has been a really skilled person, often not paid the right amount, but who has made that item of clothing. So kind of just having respect for all clothing simply because a human has made it. So that is sorry, I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but that I do think is that creative expression also helps connect us to our clothing and being more sustainable. And how do I encourage people to give it a go? I just always tell them, don't worry, this doesn't need to look perfect. It should look handmade. It should look like it's made by your hand. We're not trying to make a perfect thing here. You just kind of, the whole point is to enjoy yourself and feel like you've learned a new step and a new skill. And I really try to be as complimentary of people as possible so they don't feel put off. Because I think a lot of people's experience with sewing is like when they were 13 or even younger at school and they made something and they always come in and they're always like, oh, I can't sew, I'm really bad. And I'm like, okay, my aim is for you to leave not thinking that you're bad at this. I really want you to leave thinking that you can do it. Because also sewing is just practice. Like not even all creative, 90% of things, running, everything, it's just practice. And that's all it is. And you just put hours in and that's how you get good at stuff. So you need people to feel like they're not bad. You want to break that, bias that they've got in themselves so they can feel confident to do it again.
I love that. Do you know, one of my first ever sewing projects was when I was at primary school and I was making a small teddy bear out of some little scraps of fabric and I sewed it to my dress. So when I stood up at the end of the class, there it was, sewed firmly to my pinafore. And I've never quite got over that. I will
Sounds
say,
quite
though,
cute, though.
it was very cute. My mum loved it. But what from then, I've tried sewing since then. And I will say that the things that I make now, and I'm sure this must be the same for you and anyone else that makes things, when it's handmade by me, I know I'm going to keep that item probably forever. Whereas if I buy something from a shop, it might not last that long. And what you're giving people are the tools to kind of relearn, I think, about exactly what you said, what goes into a garment, and to value it and to keep things for longer, and then to consider more when they're buying an item. Am I going to keep this for a long time? Is it going to last? Is it really what I want? And I think that's almost what we're trying to encourage people to do, is just to think a little bit more on what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's adding in that kind of moment of pause before just like the instant checkout and I think we can apply that to so many things. Kind of when you see a trend and you think, that, I don't know, those shoes look really cool. Like I would love a sports bra in that color. Like baby blue is in. I really want a sports bra in that color. And then just actually, do you need a new pair of trainers? Maybe you do. So then you can do your research and find the best pair. Maybe you do need a new sports bra, but actually baby blue might not be the right, I don't know, long term, the right color. So I think it's like trying to, add in those moments of pause. What I often do is when I see something that I want, I will write it down on my phone. I have like a folder called links, and I just put in the link to the thing that I want, and then I will come back to it a month later or a real amount of time later, and then 99% of the time I don't want it anymore. And often it's just because I thought it looked quite fun, and then I see it and then I think, oh, actually I've already got a striped top, I could wear that, and maybe I could wear it in a slightly different way to make it feel like this new item that I don't need.
A bit different. I love that. Lydia, what I love about you is that you could be spending hours saving a discarded jacket, or you could be running miles through the dark, or you could just be enjoying a picnic in the woodland. But whatever you do, you're really present at the time and you're really happy about the things that you're doing. And I wonder what giving things a second chance has taught you about how we should treat our own lives when, the world is constantly telling us we need to buy more, be shinier, be faster, do better.
Yeah, I think something particularly that I've realised with kind of stepping away from like trying to consume is that it's just an endless chase. There's always a new thing to buy, and then it will always go out of season a year later. So you're just always needing something new, chasing something new. It's that like constant trying to attain something, and then trends always move on. So I think as much as you can take a little sidestep from feeling the need to be in like the trends current, you then feel so much more like, oh, I can observe it, but I don't need to feel part of it. And then actually that's a really freeing feeling. And then you don't feel like, oh, everyone's got silver shoes, I need a pair of silver shoes. And I think it's because you see, I think because we see stuff on Instagram, you see it in real life, you see it everywhere. So you think everyone has got these things, I really need these things. But if you're able to slightly move away from feeling like consuming puts you in the same group as people and actually we're all just the same anyway, if you can try and get slightly like that, I think that is a really freeing feeling, and I think helps you feel more present and more content with what you've got and with where things are at.
Oh, wouldn't it be great if we were all just content with where we were?
I know.
Lydia, have you got any upcoming running events, sewing events, anything that you need to tell us about that we should be knowing about?
At the moment, I'm really enjoying parkrun, and that's kind of what my main focus for the summer is, just to try to go to as many parkruns as I can, because I find them so enjoyable. And if you've got kind of if I've got a big run booked in, I find it quite hard to do parkrun because I am training. Often my training will be on the Saturday or the Sunday, so then I don't do, as in my long run with Saturday or Sunday, so I won't do parkrun. So now for the summer, my real focus is just trying to keep up and do all the parkruns I can when I don't have weekend plans. So I find them really fun and enjoyable. I do think I should find a long run to do soon, but I was injured towards the end of last year. So I feel like be sensible for me.
Don't rush into anything is my advice. Take it nice and easy. Enjoy your park runs. That sounds
and
perfect.
parkrun is so fun. I love them. I tell everyone I know who enjoys running, I'm like, I feel like I'm quite late to the game, but I just say to them, you have to go to parkrun. It is so enjoyable. And then I've got quite a few sewing workshops and things coming up, which is also very enjoyable. And then some things coming up next year that I can't talk about yet.
Oh, go on.
No.
That was a rubbish attempt at breaking you there, wasn't it? That was like, go on. No, absolutely not. Well, we'll have to look out for it. In the meantime, then, if you're not going to tell us all that juicy gossip, where can people find out more about you?
So my Instagram is Lydia Bolton with an _ at the end. And if you are interested in workshops, then probably the best place is to join my newsletter, which is on the footer of my website, which is lydiabolton.co.uk, because I tend to put workshops and all that kind of stuff on my newsletter first. And I think it just gets less lost in the mass of stories that we all consume each day.
Fantastic. Well, everybody should head over to your website and sign up for that newsletter because, in my opinion, you are our new eco beacon, in your own words. We love that. Love that phrase. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Lydia. You're a breath of fresh air. Keep doing what you're doing, infiltrating those big corporations and making people do things a little bit better. Thank you ever so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Storytime with the Green Runners. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, like and share to make sure you never miss a story.